So, on January 27th, 2025, at 8:40 p.m., Richard Saunders, a resident of the city, was stopped by Hanford Police Officer Brian Scandura in the 100 block of Irwin Court, which is the alleyway near the post office here in Hanford, for riding a bicycle with no light. The location is near the Hanford Library and down by the Hanford Civic Park. During the encounter, Officer Scandura arrested Richard, and during the arrest, Saunders was vocal and argumentative, but voluntarily placed his hands behind his back and verbally said, "Take me to jail," while doing so. After being handcuffed, Officer Scandura called for a transport unit since he is a canine unit and cannot transport. After the handcuffing, Richard was told numerous times by Officer Scandura to sit down or that he would be sat down by Officer Scandura. Officer Scandura then took Richard to the ground in a sudden and aggressive manner while he was still handcuffed. This caused Richard to strike his head. He became nonverbal, was bleeding from his head, and lost consciousness. Medical aid was called, and Richard was transported to Kauai Health Hospital in Visalia. Officer Scandura is an approximately 18-year veteran of the Hanford Police Department. 17 days later, on February 13th, 2025, after never regaining consciousness, Richard died at Kauai Health Hospital in Visalia. On the same day of his death, the Hanford Police Department had previously scheduled a convened use of force review panel on this incident. That panel by the Hanford Police Department determined that the use of force by Scandura was not within their policy. On the same day, Hanford Police Chief Huddleston, at her direction, made a request for the Kings County Sheriff's Office to conduct a criminal investigation into this incident. On February 24th, 2025, an autopsy was performed on Saunders by Dr. Evan Matchis at the Kings County Morgue. The cause of death was blunt head trauma, with the manner of death being homicide. My office, along with the District Attorney's Office Investigation Unit, investigated this case over the last several months. As a team, we concluded this case did have enough probable cause for the filing of criminal charges, and it was submitted for prosecution. It should be said the body cam footage, video, and audio are graphic and disturbing. This evidence played an important role in bringing this case for criminal charges. Special thanks to the investigative team. These cases are never easy to work. I don't care at what level, whether it results in a death or just any type of use of force. The investigative team of Ms. Hacker's office and my office worked tirelessly to bring this case to where we are today. And also a special thanks to the Hanford Police Department. While it's difficult to have a case like this happen in your organization, they were very cooperative, provided timely evidence to us, body cam footage, interviews, and anything that we needed. And so we do appreciate their full cooperation on this case. On September 10th, at approximately 6 p.m., Scandura turned himself in and was booked into the Kings County Jail and later bailed out. Originally, Judge Ciaffini had sealed all the related documents to this case. Thus, why we had a press conference scheduled and then had to cancel it. As of yesterday, she had lifted the sealing of this case. Therefore, we're back today, and we appreciate you coming. I'd like to turn it over to the District Attorney now, Sarah Hacker.
Thank you. Just to pick up where the sheriff left off in the investigation, our office was working hand in hand with the Sheriff's Department in this investigation. We received the case in February of this year, and our office worked in partnership in conducting a thorough investigation regarding the use of force of Officer Brian Scandura. Again, I also want to echo the thanks that the sheriff made to the investigation team. We had a lot of police officers and deputies that worked on this case tirelessly to make sure that all of the facts were uncovered. On September 2nd of this year, we submitted the case to the grand jury. 19 members of our public listened to the evidence and determined that an indictment was appropriate in this case. In order for an indictment to be made, at least 12 of the 19 members of the grand jury had to agree on what charges should be implicated in the indictment. The grand jury came back with involuntary manslaughter, assault with force likely to cause great bodily injury, assault by a public officer, all of these with the enhancement of great bodily injury, and battery with serious bodily injury. Brian Scandura will be arraigned on this indictment on September 24th, 2025 at the Kings County Superior Court, Department 8 at 8:15. And I just want to take an opportunity to state that our office, as well as the Sheriff's Office, had an obligation to pursue justice. We believe that the evidence supports a criminal charge, and even though the subject is a police officer acting in the course of his duties, I can't affirm enough that no one is above the law. In our county, law enforcement officers carry a profound responsibility to protect and serve the public, and the vast majority of them carry out this duty with professionalism and integrity. I have a profound respect for our police officers and deputies and the hard work that they put into keeping us safe. But when the use of force results in the loss of life, our justice system requires us to take a look at the situation, ask hard questions, assess the facts impartially, and take appropriate legal action. This is a hard moment for our community, and I encourage each and every one of you to trust in our justice system and allow the courts to work in a fair and impartial manner. Thank you.
We're here for questions. As I mentioned, the information from the grand jury was sealed. The court has made an order to release the information, but you'll have to make that request with the courts to get the transcripts, et cetera, from the grand jury indictment. But we'll do the best we can to answer any questions you might have. We're also going to display a photo of Officer Scandura, his booking photo on the screen for you to all to get and take with you, digital photo. Any questions?
Have you ever had other officers in the department face similar charges in the Hanford Police Department?
I can't speak for the Hanford Police Department, obviously, as the Sheriff's Office. In my 15 years as Sheriff, we've never been asked to investigate a case like this by the Hanford Police Department. So this was the first one of this nature.
Is this the officer's first offense of this nature, or does he have a history of excessive force?
You know, that is one area that we did look at, but we're not going to discuss that at this time based on the allegations in front of us today.
When pressing charges in a case like this, what difficulties do you face as a district attorney?
Well, I would obviously say that our office works very closely with our law enforcement partners. And so one of the difficulties is, you know, taking a hard look, an objective look, and making sure that whatever happened is handled appropriately. And it's also an issue of ensuring that our public knows that we're looking to protect them, regardless of who the offender might be. So a big challenge that we had was to look at the facts, investigate them thoroughly, and make sure that we were taking the correct choice of action. Part of the reason why we decided to move forward with the grand jury is because we wanted to see how members of the public saw this case. It's easy for somebody in my office who's seen 1,000 assault with deadly weapons or assaults causing serious bodily injury, and we can look at it in a very black and white kind of way. But due to the nature of this case, the people that were involved, we felt that it was really important for our community to look at the case and make a decision on what was appropriate. And that was the reason why we went with the grand jury. We wanted to see how members of the community looked at this case, regardless of their experience in the criminal justice system or how they evaluated a case or whether or not they had served jury duty before. And I can say that at least 12 of the 19 found that criminal charges were appropriate.
Any other questions?
What date did you say this initial incident happened?
January 27th, 2025, 8:40 PM approximately, in downtown Hanford.
So you're looking at 8 months between the indictment, grand jury, and the incident. Why do investigations like this take several months, an extended period of time?
Yeah, really good question. You know, obviously, any investigation that results in death, you want to put the effort in that is required on something like that. When you have an officer or a deputy involved, that it's at the hands of that person, you want to really make sure, because let's face it, you know, the reality in our world is these types of cases for an officer or deputy can be career-ending. It's not necessarily always the case, but it really does have a large impact on somebody's livelihood. And so we just want to make sure that we do everything we can to investigate that fully and interview everyone, look at use of force history, talk to use of force experts, look at their training records to make sure that we understand what went into this. And, you know, most of the time when you see a use of force case, it doesn't involve somebody being handcuffed. It's during the arrest process where you're still trying to get handcuffs on. And so when we saw this case where the person had already been handcuffed, it really drew our attention, watching the body cam footage, that this really needed to be looked over with a fine-tooth comb.
And for the victim in this case, have you been able to speak directly to his family?
Yeah, so we have been in contact. He was a transient for us. He had regular contacts, unfortunately, with the police department and other law enforcement agencies, but we are in contact with the family, and we have been keeping them updated as to the status of the case.
I would also add, as far as the duration of the investigation, there were extensive medical records that were collected since the victim in this case did not pass away immediately. He was under care for a considerable amount of time at the hospital. In addition to that, we wanted to ensure that we collected all of the interviews from the medical professionals to ensure that the causation for Mr. Saunders' death was in fact caused by this event.
Did the officer immediately get put on leave, or when did that, like, how does the timeline work out for the officers specifically? Kind of, I just want to clarify that.
Sure, and just so you know, I'll repeat, our role was the criminal investigation. The administrative and leave lies with the Hanford Police Department and the city of Hanford. But he was placed on leave immediately upon the death of Mr. Saunders. And so what that status is, you know, obviously the Hanford Police Department, it's a personnel matter, so they're not going to be able to disclose that information. We have been in communication. They were aware of our press conference today. We purposely didn't invite them today because we really tried to bifurcate this case, where once they turned it over to us, it was really us asking for information from them and not sharing information back to them, because we didn't also want to influence their own administrative investigation. And so, but it was fairly immediately. I don't know if it was the exact same day, but if not, it was within a couple of days. He was placed on leave upon the death of Mr. Saunders.
I have a recent question for you, because we had some audio issues. Can you explain the difficulties again that you faced in, pressing charges in this case? I'll just ask the same question.
Oh, that's okay. It's nice to get a second shot. But some of the difficulties that we experience in an investigation like this is the suspect in this case is a law enforcement partner. And our office works very closely with the police offices throughout this county, as well as the sheriff's department. And we often work hand in hand with each other. So we do have that level of familiarity in knowing who is who. In addition to that, our office typically looks at assault cases, battery cases all the time, and we tend to look at them as, are the elements met, and assessing the case. But we felt that due to the nature of the case, who was involved, that it was important to get the community involved from the onset of the case. And that's why we chose to move forward with the grand jury. And it was 19 people from our community that don't have the law enforcement background or the legal background to look at the case through the eyes of a regular person and decide whether or not charges were appropriate. And in this case, at least 12 of the 19 determined that an involuntary manslaughter charge, as well as assault with force likely to cause great bodily injury, assault by a public officer, and battery causing serious injury were appropriate charges in this case.
What are we looking at next steps in this case? What comes next?
The next step is going to be the arraignment, and that's going to take place on September 24th, 2025, Department 8 of the Kings County Superior Court at 8:15. At that point, Mr. Scandura will have the charges read to him, and he will enter a plea of guilty or not guilty, and will proceed forward. If he pleads guilty, then the court will likely set trial dates, and at that point, we will move forward with that case.
Not guilty.
Or, I'm sorry, not guilty. Thank you.
How much time could we be facing with all these charges potentially, if everything was
At this point, I'm hesitant to disclose the maximum amount of time. Obviously, this is a case that's going to be broadcasted publicly, and what we don't want to do is create any biases within our jury pool that would lead Mr. Scandura to move this case to another jurisdiction. What we want to do is ensure that everybody has a fair chance. If this goes to trial, the jury members that are sitting on that panel will come into the case with a clean slate.
Is this the first type of like death from a police officer incident with excessive force in this type of nature of the city of Hanford that you guys are aware of?
I'm not aware of any cases like this before, and I can say during my tenure as the district attorney over the last 2.5 years, we have not had a case like this come through our office.
How common is to use the grand jury access to present charges?
It's not typical that we move forward with a criminal case with a grand jury. In this case, we believe that the grand jury was the correct option because we wanted to ensure that people in the community had an opportunity to look at the case from a fresh set of eyes without knowing who was involved, without having any legal or law enforcement experience, take a look at the case and decide if charges were appropriate.
You said he's out of custody at this time? He had bailed out?
I'll defer to you.
Yes, correct. He bailed out the same day that he was turned himself in for the arrest warrant. Yes.
Is there any limitations on that? You can't go out of state or anything like that, or are we?
That would be between the suspect and the bail bondsman, but typically they have some terms and conditions in their contract that would prevent them from absconding.
And then one more question, sorry.
That's okay.
What does this say for law enforcement for the city of Hanford? I mean, obviously you guys are sheriffs, but for Kings County in general, an officer kills someone, or potentially kills someone, there are charges that he's facing. What does that reassure? How does that reassure people? That doesn't really make me want to call the police if I'm in trouble, that it might accelerate things, especially in times like now when we see plenty of police violence all throughout the country and result in many deaths.
Well, I can say this, the law enforcement officers that work in this county work with the highest degree of integrity. And I personally know many of them, and they are phenomenal, and they are completely dedicated to their job. I certainly would not take this situation and transfer it over to any police officer because so many of them work with integrity, professionalism, and care for the public. And I would also add that the Hanford Police Department's willingness to turn this case over for investigation shows that this type of conduct is not tolerated in their city, and it's not tolerated in our justice system. And I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, and I'll just add that, it's a unique case because when you think about what we do see in our community and even communities beyond, it's not very often that you see somebody die at the hands of an officer or deputy after being handcuffed. It's typically during the arrest process prior to handcuffs. And the vast majority of the time, it's the suspect's actions that are dictating the reaction by law enforcement. And those actions are duly justified by the officer or deputy involved in that arrest. But sometimes, we have rules that we have to follow, especially in California, and that we're trained on when it comes to use of force and de-escalation. And those are the things that you have to take a look at in this case, is were those rules exactly followed? Because there is a gray area sometimes on those rules. But in this case, we believe that what the grand jury saw and what a potential future jury will see, it was unreasonable for him to use the amount of force that he did in effecting this arrest, because the arrest had already taken place, the handcuffs were already on, and there was no resistance taking place other than just a subject being argumentative. And so we do believe that this is a very unique case. I've worked closely with the Hanford Police Department for 30 years, my whole career, and we do have a good relationship. But sometimes you have to have an independent agency take a look at those things, and so we appreciate that they did that and that they trusted us enough to take a look at that investigation. And when those things occur, to have a district attorney and a DA's office that has a great investigative team that we can also work with, it just means a lot. And we hope that what our community takes away from this is that we will take these things serious, and we will take an in-depth look at them to make sure that justice is served. And because we could have easily been here today, making a different announcement based on the investigation, but that's not where this investigation took us. Thank you for coming. We appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you very much. We appreciate your time.
All right.
Okay.
I can get my phone.
And then that's when we send through our statements? And then
You'll send that out to them?
package it.
Okay. Thank you.